Let's go.
Welcome to the Trusted Leader Show. I'm your host, David Horsager. Join me as I sit down with influential leaders from around the world to discuss why leaders and organizations fail, top tactics for high performance, and how you can become an even more trusted leader. Well, welcome to the Trusted Leader Show. It's David Horsager. I've got a special guest today, my friend, Bill Cates. Thanks for being with me, Bill.
Hey, you're welcome. And by the way, in case anyone misheard, it's not Bill Gates with a G. It's Bill Cates. I missed it by one letter, a few billion brain cells and a few billion dollars. But here's the deal, David. Bill Gates made a lot of money. Now he's on a mission to give it away. My mission is to help you make more money and serve more people in the process.
That's right. You're a giver too. I know you. So, Bill, you've written several books. You've sold a couple publishing companies in your lifetime. You've been quite an adventurer on the side, the Himalayas trekking and climbing Kilimanjaro and camping in the Arctic Circle and a whole lot of other things. So, this is going to be a whole lot of fun. Most of our time I want to spend on your new book, Radical Relevance. I'm so intrigued by this. I remember, I think you and I were talking about it at a coffee shop or place, in DC, but as you were working on it, and it was so fascinating. Then it's an exceptional book. So Radical Relevance, you'll find everything about that in the show notes at trustedleadershow.com. But before we get there, tell us a couple other things about you. What do we need to know about Bill Cates?
Oh Lord! Other than I love adventure travel, planning hopefully a mushing trip, a dog sled trip in Finland with a friend of mine. I got married recently, kind of late in life, January 3rd, 2020, right before COVID hit, right?
Yep.
And so I'm traveling like crazy the first couple of months, and I didn't really see my wife for almost 2 months. And people say, "Hey, Bill, how's married life?" I said, "Well, we haven't seen each other much. I guess it's good. It's working."
I'll tell you something. We, because of travel and everything, we've had been fortunate with what we do, and you and I have done some similar things, traveling around the world, work on 6 continents, and so we've gotten to take some spring breaks, different places. And finally, it was a few years ago. I'm a Minnesotan, and I said, I have been traveling so much. This year's spring break, we are staying home, and we're going to be Minnesotans. So we went up to northern Minnesota. We went mushing in Ely, Minnesota.
Nice.
It was unbelievable. Then we went ice fishing. Then we went to the Hockey Hall of Fame in Eveleth, Minnesota. Then we went to have a Friday fish dinner at this little community in Hibbing, Minnesota, the Iron Range. And anyway, we did Minnesota. But when we look back on maybe our favorite spring break, it was right in our own backyard, and it was mushing and staying in a yurt, and it was amazing. So, yeah.
Yeah, that sounds very Minnesotan.
Yeah, sure, you betcha. So tell me, before we get into this, you've been in relationship marketing for a long time. Mm-hmm. You sold your first companies. We might even come back around to that. But sure. As far as publishing companies, but tell me what's. I think people have different views of what's relationship marketing.
Yeah. So, and lately, there's been a kind of a convergence of the traditional, if you want to call that relationship, as more the traditional, and the digital. So I'm kind of calling it tradigital. But even in the digital things that we work on, there's still the relationship. So for instance, we're always thinking in the warmest source. What is the warmest way to reach prospects? What is the warmest way to attract? We always want to start in the warmest place. A lot of people get caught up in doing Facebook ads and LinkedIn this and using the bots that'll get you kicked off of LinkedIn and all that stuff, right? But, and I'm not saying that doesn't have a place for some folks, but how would someone prefer to meet you? Most of the businesses that I work with and consult with, their ideal clients would prefer to meet them through a warm source, someone they already trust. We want to use that borrowed trust. So referrals, personal introductions, social event marketing, centers of influence, all the different ways we use the existing relationships in our life to get what we want to get done. And what I say to folks, if you're trying to meet someone or, meet certain types of people or get a problem solved, look at your relationships first, right? That should be your first Google search, if you will, is what relationships do you have in place? And odds are, if you've got a problem, someone who's had the same problem, they've figured it out. You just got to get connected to those people.
By the way, you did at a big event from a whole Minnesota group just a week ago, and I was hoping to be there, but they said you did a fantastic job. Speaking of relationships, that told me directly. So just want to
thank you. And I did miss you there. You were conspicuously absent.
Thank you. So, you've been a generous giver. I think that's a part of relationships, is that you are giving, you're helping, you're connecting, you're adding value. But we got to jump into this book because I'm really excited about it. Radical Relevance, Sharpen Your Marketing Message, Cut Through the Noise, Win More Ideal Clients. Why this book and why now?
Yeah, well, why this book? There's two main reasons. There's two main barriers to meeting people, building our businesses. And one is the marketing message overload, right? So we do have to cut through all that noise. People have erected all kinds of barriers to keep all the noise out, right? Because so much isn't relevant. And anything that isn't relevant, they want to ignore it. And if it's slightly relevant, they still want to ignore it. So that's one of the obstacles or one of the reasons I wrote the book. The other is inertia, right? People are either moving in a certain direction, they're resisting change, they've got their head down, they don't want to take the time to look at a new option, even though the option may be better. They may have problems that they need to solve, but they're moving so dang fast that they're just kind of willing to live with those problems because of the speed. Or on the flip side, they're just stuck, right? They're doing nothing. They're confused. And if they're confused, they're not going to move forward. This is, by the way, all of this we're talking about also works inside an organization. It's not just in external marketing your product, and we can get to that. But in any event, those are the two main things that I wrote the book is how do we reach people? How do we get them to listen to our message? And then how do we get them to move and to take the action that's in their best interest, right? It's always got to be considering that it's in their best interest to do that.
I think, we talk about the 8 pillars of trust all the time, and you hit it out of the park on 2, maybe on all of them, but I 2 really stood out, and one is clarity. People have so much issue with clarity. We know that people trust the clear and they mistrust or distrust the ambiguous or the overly complex. Yep. Most people aren't. And the other pillar you hit it out of the park on, and you just do this in life, and that's the connection pillar, connecting and collaborating. We have to connect with people to market well. Let's jump to one part I think is fascinating, and that is you have a different view of value propositions from the inside. Like, let's be clear there, because if we're clear there, you have a chance at being clear outwardly. Can you help explain that?
Yeah, so a lot of people, I believe, confuse, and maybe it's just semantics, but people think when they think of value proposition, they think of elevator pitch. They think of that short, succinct way to talk about our value. And we do need to have a short, succinct way to talk about it for certain circumstances. But in my mind, a value proposition is really from the minute you meet a prospective client, onboarding them, serving them, ongoing, everything you do, the questions you ask, the things you teach, the service you render, that's your value proposition. That's where all the points of value come from. That seems
too big and ambiguous. How do I get clear about that?
Well, first of all, one of the things I help organizations do, the ones who want to dig in with this, is get everybody in the organization, or at least key people, and dig through all of that and really figure what are all the points of value. And it's amazing how people buy into the mission and the vision of the business when they get in touch with all the places we provide value, because, employees, they want to have a sense of the work that they're doing to that external customer is making a difference for those people, right? And so when you get in touch with your full value proposition, everyone gets on the same page. Actually, people get excited about the work they do. And then from there, you do start to narrow it down a little bit. You start to think about, all right, what do we want to communicate? What's going to resonate best with our prospective customers and customers? And from there, we draw the shorter, more succinct ways of talking about our value. But first, we do that big work. And it's just better. You don't have to do that to come up with ways to talk about your business, but it's better work. And then what I always recommend is you take this work that you've done and then you talk to some of your customers or clients. In my book, Radical Relevance, I have the 17 rules of radical relevance. And number 2 is give your clients or customers a seat at the table. And many businesses do that with, advisory boards and things like that. Larger businesses do it with focus groups, but that's critical. We should never develop this in a vacuum, right? We should never, we have a good sense of what people want, but it's not exactly what they want. And we want to hear it from them because we're going to come up with words and phrases that we wouldn't even think of, that our clients, customers, prospects think of.
Hey, it's Ann with the Trust Edge team here. As you know, we are passionate about helping you and your team perform at your best. And that's why David wrote his new book, Trusted Leader. This true-to-life parable follows the story of a CEO who uncovers the root issue threatening his organization's success. And in the back half of the book, David provides a roadmap for even how to solve those root issues. Get Trusted Leader for your team, your organization, or even just for yourself at trustedleaderbook.com.
When you see a company and they kind of put all these values up, when do you see employees get excited? Like, what's something that is sometimes surprising to an employee to say, "Oh, I didn't even know we offer that value. I'm so excited to be a part of this group because look at this. We offer this value. I didn't even really say in the mission statement or know or see. And now that I do, I feel more a part of this."
Yeah, so it's a couple of places. One is the problems that we solve for our clients or customers. A lot of times the employees don't realize the state of affairs that someone comes to us in, and their confusion and their uncertainty and the problem that they're facing, whether it's bleeding money or whatever it might be. And a lot of the internal folks don't know that. They don't see the full picture. And so where they see how they really help that company, that person, but even more so is they see how that affects a lot of other people. So for instance, one company that I consult with up in Canada works with a lot of CEOs, a lot of leaders, and they help the leaders become better leaders. And that's cool and that's neat. But one of the things they weren't really fully grasping that I think I helped them with a little bit is that when they help leaders get better, that helps everyone in the organization, right? Because a better leader, a more enlightened leader, a more rested leader, you name it, it impacts the lives of hundreds, thousands of people, right? And so when they see that full impact of their value, that's what they get excited about that. And the other little place is sometimes a lot of people don't realize how much we can often help people who aren't even clients or customers yet. Just in the prospect experience, just in that, that determining, are we a fit? Are you a fit? Does it make sense? The courtship. We bring a lot of value when we help. And a lot of people get very excited about that because they didn't realize how we help people who don't even become customers or clients.
I think a key there is, I think something I hope our team is proud of is how we do things, the way we do it. It matters so much. It's like, hey, I'm proud to be here because we do it differently than that. We had something where just today we had a big contract come in.
Nice.
And we said, hey, we made a place for this smaller kind of nonprofit thing that we committed to. So we don't just go tell them, not doing this, we're going to take this big amount. We keep this commitment, and them seeing that is like, I love being a part of this, where we keep commitments, where we do what we say. I mean, I think there's a thing in how we treat people, how we treat each other, how we, I think people love to be a part of, not that we certainly don't do it perfectly, but I think there's something there.
Well, when I talk about referrals and introductions, it's quite often not the product or the service or the core service that makes you referable. It's the process of doing business with you. It's the process of learning about the product and the service that you offer. It's the process of the delivery of all of that. So we need to make two types of connections with our clients or customers. We got to make a value connection. We got to make a personal connection. The value connection, questions you ask, things you teach, responsive service, all that sort of good stuff. But then the personal connection, how we interact with people, how we, keep our commitments, how we apologize if we make a mistake, that whole, how we create business friendships sometimes along the way. That's what makes us referable. And that's what makes the experience worth talking about to other people. It's the process.
That's so good. You talked about something, we were on problems a moment ago. You talk about the difference between aspirational versus critical problems. Yeah. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I actually got this from a gentleman by the name of Michael Skock out of Boston, and it's the last chapter in my book. And he outlines a graph. Think of it this way. So we got that everyone is sitting on problems that are latent. They don't know they have the problem, and they're either critical or they're aspirational, right? So if we have a problem that we don't know about, well, we don't know about it, and so we're not going to do anything about it. Right. So sometimes some people in the sale and marketing of products and services, we have to inform people to help them realize there is this issue, there is this problem. But if it's aspirational, if it's something they're going to get to someday, yeah, I'll do that eventually. Yeah, they might act, they might not. And some people will act on aspirational things. We don't leave it out. But if it's critical, if there's a deadline, if they're bleeding money, if they're in some sort of pain, and if it's a B2B sale, there's the corporate pain and then there's the personal pain that they're feeling. They're under a lot of pressure, whatever, right? They will move heaven and earth to solve a blatant critical problem. So we either want to organize our business around blatant critical problems so that we go out to the market serving people who know they have the problem, or we better have a good educational process, a way to help them realize the problem is there and that it's a critical problem, or we may not move people. We're going to be frustrated. I just got off a consulting call with a firm around that. And too many people are putting them off. They're doing this first, and we got to do this first. We got to do this first. So they're not showing the critical nature and the cost of doing nothing, right? Sometimes we have to ask, what happens if we do nothing? And if it's an aspirational problem, they'll say, well, not much, I'll live with it.
Yeah, I mean, this is so critical. I not to say critical, but overdo it. But this is why we're way more motivated by pain than pleasure. Oh, you'll give me $20? I might come up and get it. Oh, you put a tack on my seat? Ouch, I'm jumping. It's like we're so much more motivated by pain to act.
I would say that's true, yes. And the brain is geared that way. But we don't want to discount the aspirational. Let me explain. So in chapter 3 of my book is the neuroscience of relevance.
I wanted to get to that.
Yeah, and I hurt my brain right in the chapter, and I had 3 neuroscientists who I consulted with to make sure I was getting it right, because I had you write one chapter on neuroscience. But nonetheless, one thing I learned, a lot of things. One was that the brain every 6 times a second is scanning, right? It's unconscious, obviously. Where am I? Am I safe? Where, right? That's to keep the body, the organism alive. And then 3 times a second, it's going, is there an opportunity? Squirrel, right? So the brain is built for opportunity. The brain is built to take advantage of new things, but only when it feels safe. So that's why in marketing and expressing our value, and this is also internal in an organization, if we're trying to get people to buy into our ideas internally, we first have to help people feel safe. We have to show that we have empathy, understanding, appreciation for the challenges that they're facing, because they want to fix those first. And then usually the aspirational and the goals, that's kind of really just the other side of the same coin. Right? You solve this problem and then they get freed up for the aspirational. Same thing with Maslow's hierarchy, right? You got to fix these critical things first before you can think in terms of self-actualization, right? So both of those are important. And so what I tend to do is in my marketing and my influence work, I tend to start with an empathy for someone's situation and problems and that they want to fix, need to fix. But I don't forget about the things they also want to accomplish and their goals and their aspirations, because you never know exactly what's going to trigger their attention and motivation. Because a lot of people are motivated by the aspirational. So you do both. You just and then you're hitting the whole brain, right?
Yeah, exactly. You talk about something, and this is, we all have problems. And you kind of give a framework for solving problems, but you talk about how to even determine this model for solving problems, determining the problems to solve for clients or businesses. Right. To give us a little bit of a hint inside of that.
Yeah. So the whole thing of radical relevance is just a relentless pursuit of getting to know our prospects and clients. When the pandemic hit, it became more important than ever before. And the businesses that actually thrived uh, into the pandemic and hopefully, knock on wood, beyond, are the ones who took that time to go back to their customers or clients and say, look, we're all going through a challenge here. What are your biggest challenges? What do you need right now? Forget about what we do. What do you need? Maybe we can help you. Maybe we can introduce you to someone who can help you, right? I want to focus on you now. And what happened is a lot of the clients I worked with and other businesses who I interview for the work I do, they're getting more referrals than ever before, more unsolicited referrals than ever before, because they took that time to truly listen to what the client's situation was, what the problems were, and not just what the corporate problem was, but how does that person, how are they relating to the problem? There's always two levels to that problem. And Donald Miller and Storybrand, right? And he talks about the villain is kind of the external problem that person and the company faces. But then there's the internal part of that and getting to know the person. And the neat thing about the pandemic, I mean, there's a lot of bad things about it, obviously, but one of the neat things is a lot of people became more transparent and more vulnerable, if you will, and just more real, right? And all that's done
because you got the CEO with the 4-year-old with their running behind with their undies, and you got the cat jumping on the computer.
It's true. I when I watch my daughter's cat, she walked by, a black cat walking by in the middle of a virtual presentation. I warned people. But that happened, and that's a good thing, I think, right? Because I think that little piece, that little forgiving aspect, I don't think will ever go away. I think we're going to be a little more forgiving of people when it comes to this sort of stuff. So, back to the problem issue is one of the things we need to do when we discover someone has a problem is we need to figure out, of course, what the impact of the problem is. Right? How is that impacting the company? How is that impacting you? And then we keep asking, tell me more, get deeper and deeper, because there's layers of an onion. And then we get to the essence. And that's when we can come in and really be that guide and help that person.
So walk me through that. Let's just take, I got a problem. How do I get to that? It looks like this first, like take somebody's as an example, like it looked like this. And when the essence looked like this, like what was the difference between the outward showing and with the essence being?
Yeah. Okay. So one of the companies that I work with in Canada, where we help them go from 100 clients to 1,000 clients in 7 years. And we're talking about $10,000 a year per client or more. So that's a big piece of growth. What they were doing when they first got started is they were kind of staying on the surface. They were saying, this is it. It's lonely at the top being a CEO. You need more people around you to help you and feel more camaraderie and all that. And you know what? That attracted a lot of people, and that was really good. However, there's always deeper parts to that. So then you say, well, tell me more about that, right? My favorite phrase in life and business is "tell me more."
Yeah.
Right. Someone says, yeah, this is causing an issue. I'm sorry to hear that. Tell me more. Well, my employees are now or I'm getting pressure from the board. All right. Well, tell me more about that. What's that looking like? And they'll talk a little bit more. And then, and then of course, I'm working too many hours. And so I'm getting home, I'm getting pressure from my spouse too. And tell me more about that. And so just this tell me more and other questions like, why is that important to you? Or why is that important to your organization? These are the digging kind of questions that a lot of people don't ask. They stay on the surface. And it doesn't mean you can't be of some value to those people, but relevancy is all about context. So the more context we have about someone and a company, the better we can serve them. And some of that context we get from the work we do before we meet them, the research we do from the referral source, from the internet. And then most of the in-depth context we get is from helping these people discover discover how they feel about it. Sometimes they're running so fast, they don't even realize how it's impacting them. And so that's what I mean by getting to the essence of the problem. And that's, by the way, how we often get to that critical nature of the problem, right? Because when they say, if I don't fix this, the board of directors is probably going to let me go, right? That's what a CEO could say. And all right, so now they're feeling it, right? And maybe they never admitted it even to themselves before. They kind of had a sense of it, but when they speak it out, it's like it becomes real. And that's when people will move heaven and earth to fix the problem. And so I hope that makes sense.
Yep. That's fantastic. I can remember a senior leader saying to me, $300 billion organization saying, here's the bottom line, David. I haven't told anybody this, but I feel the weight of the world in the pit in my stomach every morning and when I wake up with the responsibility of this work. So,
hey, it's Sam from the Trust Edge team. Most training and development initiatives don't last or even solve the root issue hindering your organization. That's where Trust Edge coaching certification comes in. Trust Edge coaches are equipped with a suite of tools to identify, benchmark, and close gaps in trust for good. Because when you solve the real issue, you get measurable results in a culture where people actually want to make an impact. So whether you're a coach with your own clients or a leader training people inside your organization, check out trustedgecoaching.com and see how you can start solving the root issue and get lasting results in your business. And now back to the show.
There's so much more in this book. I want to touch on two other things that stood out and that, we could go anywhere. People can get it, Radical Relevance. And I think, interestingly, a lot of what you're saying is some of it is simple. People don't do it. It's listening. Listen to your clients. Listen to your customers. Listen to your people. Okay. Yeah. No doubt about it. But you talk about the difference between strategic and tactical relevance.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Yeah. So strategic relevance are kind of the big decisions, right? Or the bigger decisions, like who fits and who doesn't fit your business. Who are you trying to attract and who are you no longer trying to attract? And every business needs to visit this from time to time. And so within that is the target market. What is your target market? Are you clear on that? What is the bullseye in that market? Right. And when I say bullseye, we call them right fit clients. Some people call them ideal personas, avatars. There's a lot of words that people bandy about around this. But it's clarity around that. And you're right, clarity is prime. By the way, there's brain science around that because the brain is trying to keep the organism alive. All right. So the brain is trying to expend fewer calories, right? Even though we're trying to, burn calories to lose weight or whatever, right? But the brain's fighting up against this. And anytime it comes across a message that's confusing, uncertain, guess what? The brain resists going there. I mean, you can go there and figure it out, but the brain doesn't want to go there because it's not clear and the brain wants clarity, as you said, right? So, yeah, so we've got to make sure that at every step along the way we're being clear on what we want, who we want to serve, how we reach those people, et cetera. So that's kind of the strategic side of things. The tactical is really, of course, the implementation of that. So for instance, reaching out to prospective clients. Now we're in a little bit of the sales mode here, right? Where how do you differentiate yourself from competitors? You can have strategic differentiation, but eventually it comes down to the tactical. How do you separate yourself from someone? Especially, one of the biggest obstacles we face in the sales and marketing cycle is the incumbent, the person who's already in place serving that particular prospect. How do we separate ourselves from that person without making that other company look bad? Because you don't want to question the decisions that your prospect has made. You don't want to say, look, you chose the wrong company. Because
what's one idea? How would I do it? I got to go in. That guy's been selling there forever. They kind of like him okay, but how am I going to unseat the incumbent? I have something better.
Yeah. So first of all, it's getting to know the world that you're serving, and then getting to know your prospect the best you possibly can. And that's working through referrals and personal introductions as best you can, which is what I've been teaching forever. But even if you don't meet them through referral, it's doing a lot of homework and really getting to know. And so then you quite often do it through the questions you ask. So the biggest thing in sales and marketing is empathy. Empathy is not the same as sympathy. Empathy is understanding of and appreciation for someone's situation. And we can often demonstrate our knowledge and our awareness and appreciation for their situation through the questions we ask. So that's one way to separate ourselves a little bit and demonstrate we know them. But I'll give you a specific formula. And I got this from Karen Kopp, who wrote a book called Biz Dev Done Right. And she's a colleague of ours in our association. And I feature this in my book, Radical Relevance. And it goes like this. We're going to get super tactical here. Anyone can, only we can, for example. Or a lot of people can, very few can, for example. All right. So look, any consultant, any sales trainer can talk about trust and building trust, and they do. But we are the only firm that actually puts out an annual trust report where we do empirical, validated statistical research that draws the straight line between trust and the dollar and all the stuff that you guys do, right? So I'm kind of using you. I'm butchering it, I'm sure.
No, it's great. That's who we are.
Right. And then for example, and the for example is very important, because whatever you might say about what you do and how you might do it a little differently, you need to bring it to life. You need to make it real for people. And it's the for example. And that's where you share a little mini case study, right? For example, here's how it shows up, right? With a client the other day, or we do this trust study, could be the for example. And so that's a way that we separate ourselves. Anyone can, but only we do this, right? And if you do something in a way that other firm doesn't do, that is a clear benefit to the prospect, that's got to be translated to a benefit, then they're going to go, oh, tell me more. And it's hard to wrestle people away from the incumbent, because sometimes the devil they know is better than the devil they don't know. And here goes your trust stuff, right? You got to build that trust and credibility and connection, and all those things that you talk about goes hand in hand with the stuff that I talk about.
It does. I love it. Wow, we could go all day on this. It's fantastic. Just let's get personal for a second. You're a lifelong learner. You've built business for 40 years. What are you learning now? What's new?
Well, I'll tell you, I read a quote recently from Vince Lombardi, and some people will be old enough to remember Vince Lombardi, the coach of the Green Bay Packers. And this has stuck with me, and it served me well. And he said, "Fatigue makes cowards of us all." And so, David, when I'm getting into a negative spin of thoughts, and we all get there from time to time, I don't care how positive we are and optimistic that we are, we get to that. And then I just take a time out and I go, I'm being negative. What's going on here? I'm tired. And just that awareness of the fact that I'm being tired, I'm turning into a wimp, I'm turning negative. And then I just do something different. I'll go listen to music. I'll break the state, and I'll get into something different. So that's one big lesson. Let me give you another one. And everybody kind of knows this, but what you put your attention on grows stronger in your life, right? Now, Earl Nightingale, and the strangest secret years ago, said, what you think about, you become. And gosh, the more we become aware of that, the more we focus on it. And there's a related to that clear intentions produce clear results. Vague intentions produce vague results, right? When we're clear, then guess what happens? We start making different decisions. We start taking action in subtle ways that we don't even know that we created that for ourselves because of our clarity. And so we're going to draw the right things to us when we're clear and when we stay focused. There's a consistency of focus and clarity. They work together. So that's what I've been learning and thinking about, and putting the practice in my own business.
Wow, we can't beat that. Mic drop. Here we go. Fatigue makes cowards of us all.
It's
clear intention equals clear results. Vague intention equals vague results, and a whole lot more. Hey, for everybody out there, you can find out more about Bill Cates, all of his books, and his newest book, Radical Relevance, at trustedleadershow.com. You'll see the show notes. There's everything about Bill, the things that he's mentioned, or everything he wants to have public facing. Just trust me, right? But so trustedleadershow.com. We'll put in the show notes. This has been fantastic. Last question we ask everybody. It's the Trusted Leader Show. Who's a leader you trust and why?
David, I knew you were going to ask me this, and my first thought was politics, and I'm going, no, I'm not going there. Because even if I think of someone, it's going to divide half of the listening audience. So why even go there? And then then a name popped into my mind. It's someone someone no one has heard of on this podcast, I'm pretty sure. And it's a gentleman by the name of Barry Banther. And Barry is the current chairman of the board of the National Speakers Association, NSA, not the NSA that you're thinking about. They're the ones who listen. We're the ones who talk. And but he's the chairman of the board. And when I think of integrity, and I think of someone I can trust, and has the perfect mix of a little bit of spiciness and a sense of humor and a little interesting history, but with a mild, trusting, steady, intellectual manner, right? You need a little bit of both, a little bit of spice and a little bit of that. And that's one of the guys I'd go to battle with, right? That's one of the guys that I would trust to be holding the rope for me when I'm hanging off the edge of the cliff.
And everybody that knows Barry Banther would be like, oh, yeah, I didn't think of it. Absolutely.
We got to make sure he hears this, right?
Exactly. I mean, it's like, wow. And by the way, he's trusted by some of the wealthiest people in the world as far as personally, because he's confidential. He's private in the appropriate ways. He's brilliant. So That's a great one. There's a lot more we could say. Mr. Bill Cates, what a treat. I'm thankful to call you my friend, and I'm grateful for your wisdom. You've made me better, and you continue to. And so I want to thank you especially for coming today. This has been the Trusted Leader Show. Until next time, stay trusted.